Have a great presentation. I'll be monitoring it on my phone.
Okay. What's your name?
Luke.
Luke. Okay. Thank you. We'll just have a few more minutes. So I just don't really remember something. Unfortunately, timing. Yeah. I just wanted to acknowledge that, Sarah.
Go for it, Karen. Go for it. You're probably be like, wait a minute, this is an experience, but okay.
Where? The WSU Coombs truck.
Oh, no, I wish. I thought you said check. I was like, there's a big work truck out there?
Truck, sorry.
No, it's Don McMorris from Skagit County. Is he here? I think, well, someone from Skagit is here because it's their. Yeah. So, someone's here because that's the Skagit truck. I still can't believe he got funding for that.
We're out there.
We haven't really got before focus for the food stamps program.
For someone
We did get a moving SSC classroom wrap with the long windows.
Oh, I did the same thing.
Welcome everyone, we're gonna just give everyone a few more minutes with lunch wrapping up. So you are at the Eat Local First session, so hopefully you're in the right room. Yeah. Yes.
So I was like, man, it was like sludge. And I was like, yeah, that one's a little better. It's just a really good one. It was so incredibly solid. It's like, you can see this one better. Yeah.
Get started.
Yeah. Yeah, we get people who just did it. Yeah, so it's like, going down to Sunday,
Okay.
First name and organization.
Hi everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Great. We're gonna continue to wait for folks to trickle in, but we thought we'd take a couple minutes while we're doing that. And we're just gonna popcorn throughout the room since we have a pretty small, intimate group. And if you wouldn't mind just saying your name and your organization you're with, we just like to get a sense of who's here, and if you don't mind, we can start right over here.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Stephanie and I'm with South Farm.
I'm Carolina, I'm with South Farm and Puget Sound Food Hub.
I'm Miranda Smith and I'm with Fair Start.
I'm Lauren Garski, I'm with Carnation Farms.
I'm Twyla Allen with Spud Hollow Farm.
I'm Cynthia Nims. I'm on the Tilt board, and in my other life I'm a food writer.
I'm Derek Long with Sustainable Connections.
I'm Claire Hanna, Fractal Studios.
I'm Sarah Collier, University of Washington Food Systems.
Eric Vaughn, Barnes Teaching Farm and Kitchen.
We'll keep going that way, yeah.
I started it. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Nicole Berry, I'm with Snohomish County.
I'm Sam Osborne with Tilt Alliance, and I'll be passing out session evaluations at the end of this session.
Hi, I'm Mary Purdy. I'm a dietitian with Master University and the Planetary Health Collective.
Hi, I'm Gabriella St. George with Business Impact Northwest.
I'm Patricia Hennessy with the Local Food Trust.
Gail Jacobson, Clean Food Farm.
Carrie Parks, Flourish Organic Farms.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know this is streaming, so just not sure how much of that got picked up, but we have a good mix in the room. We've got some farmers, we've got some distributors, some service providers. So there's a good mix, which is great because all of this information is relevant to every person in this room. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. You are here in the session about Eat Local First, building digital capacity for farms in Washington State. My name is Marissa Valiant. I should probably take off my mask, sorry about that. My name is Marissa Valiant. I am the Eat Local First manager. I work at Sustainable Connections up in Bellingham, but I have also been privileged to get to be a part of forming the Eat Local First collaborative. And I will pass it along to Cheryl to introduce herself and then
Alright, hello everyone, my name is Cheryl Weiser and I am with Tilt Alliance. I'm the Director of Outreach and I am so lucky and privileged and happy to be lead staff to Eat Local First from Tilt Alliance and be part of this amazing journey of helping to launch this collaborative a year ago and work with an incredible group of dynamic people. And with that, I'm going to pass it along to Laura Lewis.
Hi everyone, I am Laura Lewis. I'm director of the WSU Food Systems Program. I've been with WSU for about 10 years and this has definitely been a passion of mine, is to figure out how we can create platforms to get more local food into households across Washington, institutions, wholesalers, etc. I came to the process after it had started with some of the resources that we had within the food systems program that we were kind of trying to figure out what to do with. So I'm really excited that we were able to partner and collaborate with this group, and just really excited to be here with these two rock stars that have really been shepherding this program forward. And Patricia, who's here, she's part of our collaborative as well. And we want to give a shout out to Sarah Collier as well, who her early grant work was what helped catalyze some of this, and continued grant work where we've put in some additional funding to continue to support ELF through some of the promotional campaigns. So just really excited to be here.
Great, thank you. So I'm curious, just a show of hands, who here is familiar with the Washington Food and Farm Finder? Okay, so a good amount of people, but not everyone. So we're gonna take just a couple minutes and we're gonna play a short video to take a little tour of the Washington Food and Farm Finder at eatlocalfirst.org.
Hello, and welcome to Eat Local First, the home of the Washington Food and Farm Finder. We help people find local food, specifically food that is grown, raised, harvested, and made right here in Washington State. Whether folks are looking for farmers markets, farm stands, restaurants that source from local producers, or they want to shop according to their values, supporting women-owned businesses, organic producers, BIPOC farmers, and food businesses. Or maybe they want to search by location. This works great for folks looking to find a farmer's market in their home city, or if they're on a road trip. We also provide many resources and storytelling for visitors to learn and connect more deeply to the people and places that bring them the best flavors of Washington State. Let's take a look at the Washington Food and Farm Finder. The Washington Food and Farm Finder is a powerful search tool and delivers results from the entire state based on the user's selected location, categories, and keywords. We make it easy for people to connect with all the types of local food in all the places it is available, direct from farms or seafood producers, at markets and grocers, locally made products, local places to eat and drink, and local resources. We have many filters built into the site to help people find the exact product and experience they are looking for. Want to find a local berry farm that also offers U-Pick? No problem. From here, I can find more information about the farms closest to me. I can get details on the farm and connect directly to their online store. We have a variety of seafood products from caviar to oysters. There are many types of markets and grocers for local products, farmers markets, food co-ops, even online ordering for local food boxes and meal kits, as well as online marketplaces and food hubs. We know that Washington State is home to a ton of incredible locally made products, from beverages to baked goods, and honey to home care products. There are many ways to experience them, and we make it easy for folks to find all the ways, whether they want to visit a tasting room or just order directly online. Want to find a restaurant that sources from local farms? We've got those too. And finally, local resources, chock full of organizations assisting to provide greater access to food and education.
Okay. So that's just a little overview of the site, a little snapshot, but we're going to talk for a minute about who we are. Cheryl, do you want to talk about the collaborative?
Sure, I love talking about the collaborative. So the collaborative is made up of currently, I believe there are 6 members. And so we came together as different food system stakeholders around the state, starting with Sustainable Connections, which is based up in Whatcom County, Tilt Alliance, which is based in Seattle but statewide, the Local Food Trust, which is Patricia Hennessy over in the Lower Peninsula, WSU Small Farms Team, Regional Small Farms Team, which is Kitsap, Jefferson, and McClellan, WSU Food Systems, and Pierce County Fresh. And so we formed as a collaborative on June of 2020. We started having, we all really came together, I think, in earnest, and probably starting right around February, March 2020, and recognizing that the need was there, that consumers were looking for local food and farmers were looking for ways to get the message, to get the word out. So that's who we are, and that's a very productive and very powerful group of partners, and so being able to create even better tools together was our goal, to get through to consumers. And so, so just, do you want to talk a little bit about Eat Local First as the brand and where it started from? Or you can also just
Yeah, I'm going to take my mask off in a second. I did just want to say, you know, we're here to talk about digital capacity and what that really means for farms in Washington State and for food producers and for the entire food system. And so I did want to just pop it over to Laura because, well, in 1 second. So we, sorry, did your mask off just yet. So as Cheryl was saying, we came together last year really because of the pandemic and there were efforts all across the state, right, where people were saying, we need to get online, farmers are trying to get online. How do we then find farmers? Like, how we need more connection online, need more digital infrastructure. And so there were several people that were building new maps. And the problem with that is then you have to maintain those maps and websites, you have to market them. And so one of the things that emerged, and I know Sarah from your research as well, is collaboration really was such a driver for sustaining the food system during the pandemic. And so we came together and decided to merge together several different farm directories. One of them was WSU's Farm Finder, and so I was just going to ask Laura to share a little bit about the history there.
Sure. So the WSU Farm Finder was developed by a group of WSU folks as well as partners like Puget Sound Fresh back about 20 years ago. It was quite a while ago. It was kind of very early sort of internet database. Has anyone here had a Farm Finder listing? Yeah, so pretty clunky. But we covered the whole state. We were one of the few databases that was up and running prior to COVID. Even though it wasn't maintained, we didn't have staff support for it. We had done a big overhaul in 2017, but it still had probably, I don't know, 700 listings or so that were either out of date or broken links out of the 1900, or, you know, it was kind of a mess, but it was there. You know, so at the beginning of COVID, we started doing hub calls every Friday with food systems leaders and community members and producers across the state, and really started promoting the use of this Farm Finder tool again. You know, like, hey, it's kind of clunky and it's not great, but it covers the whole state. You know, so we knew our partners were covering other parts of the state as well and had good coverage, but we were like, you know, this is going to hit these areas in Eastern Washington, Central Washington, that we don't have, you know, maybe a database. And meanwhile, conservation districts were putting together lists, just like what Marissa was saying, like everyone was trying to put together a list. And so at one of these calls, I don't remember how we all got connected, but it was kind of this aha moment of like, well, there's this group coming together. They've already been talking about Eat Local First. They'd already expanded the Eat Local First brand out to the peninsula, you know, looking at what they could do to really support this. And we had this old, you know, database with more farms in it than we knew what to do with and listings that needed to be updated. So rather than invest, that was kind of what we were almost going to compete for some of the same pots of money, you know, like looking at, oh, we need to overhaul our WSU database to make it something that's a successful tool right now and moving forward. And it was just serendipitous that in one of these calls, you know, it was mentioned that this was happening and to get to, you know, to work together so that we weren't competing for the same resources and really building something collaboratively that would cover the state across multiple organizations as partners. So really pulling the capacity we had to do this. So yeah, it was really exciting. We're still cleaning up the WSU data, so it's been a process, but really just happy to be able to find a home for our database and to know that with the MOU that we've put together as a collaborative group, there's a process to keep this going into the future, which is really exciting for us. You know, we're still obviously doing a lot of the fund development and bringing things together, but as a WSU perspective, we always want to give birth to something and give it away and let others be able to foster it moving forward if it's something that is seen as critical. So it's been really beautiful collaboration.
Yes. Thank you, Laura. So our vision is we aspire to help create a resilient, sorry, I keep forgetting to take off. We aspire to help create a resilient, equitable community food system where people are connected to their local farms and food businesses wherever they live, work, shop, visit, and eat in Washington State. Our mission is to play a foundational role in strengthening the connections between local food, local communities, and regional economies by being the go-to resource for finding food that is grown, raised, harvested, and made in our state. And I do want to point out that this is largely driven by farm data, but we do also have listings for seafood producers, and we find that really important to include all sectors of the food system. So why Eat Local First? Why a brand, right? We are here to make it easy for people to find local food. The definition of local varies depending on where you are, what kind of community you're in. At Sustainable Connections up in Whatcom County, the Eat Local First brand was established in 2011, and it was developed to help people identify truly local food, because you have grocers like Fred Meyer, screaming local, and McDonald's screaming local, and people know that that's not authentic. They want to know where is the food that's coming from the actual farmers that are in my community. And so for us, our definition of local was the 4-county region of Whatcom, Skagit, San Juan, and Island counties. And that remains to be our definition of local for Sustainable Connections. But on a statewide level, it's really a missing piece is people being able to recognize what is actually local. And so that is the value of the brand, is being easily recognizable and having something for all food producers and makers and restaurants to be able to help people identify that they're using truly authentic Washington produced products. And how do we make it easy? There's trust. Because we are a group of 6 different organizations across the state who have relationships both regionally and interconnectedly with each other, we have a lot of trust built here. We have relationships with our farms in different areas of the state, and that builds trust in our community. People know that. People know that WSU extensions are connected at a deep level with their agricultural community. Transparency about where food is actually coming from. We know that's really important to consumers. And storytelling. We have a whole section of the site dedicated to telling the story of local producers and those in our food system, because that's really what people want to connect with. They want to know that they're supporting families and people, not just a product. So what do? People are looking for local food, and we help them find it. We know that consumers are committed to sourcing local foods, and we also know that local food producers need marketing support. So we have the Local First brand and platform and the Washington Food and Farm Finder to help connect consumers with local food producers. Cheryl, did you want to say anything else about the branding?
I could say some other things about the branding.
Did I miss anything?
No, so, I mean, when we talk about a brand, I mean, that goes back to, your brand is your promise, and it's your story. And I think what Marissa was just saying about authenticity and trust, they all go hand in hand with that. And it's also about your ability to, when you're telling a story, it's not one that is, for lack of a better word, you're not greenwashing. You're telling about who is growing our food, why does it matter, and it's not just the usual stories. And it's about how do you really dig deep and tell and present, this work across a variety of platforms, and that gets into marketing a little bit. But I think that one of the things that we have been able to do, first of all, just really kudos and hats off to Sustainable Connections for the work that they've been doing since 2011 with the Eat Local First brand, because they really took this, and they started it, and they started this conversation, and they started this work. And they really started working with consumers in terms of thinking about it every month, what are we eating, and about farm tours, and about Eat Local Month. And so they've been doing a lot of really great work. So by the time that we all came together and started working more collectively, they had already built a nice piece of the infrastructure. So I just really wanted to get that out. And so I think then, we're gonna get into a little bit more as we move on through the presentation, a little bit more about marketing and the brand. But I think it is really important to recognize that in Washington State, Washington is one of 5 states in the country, and I know Derek will verify this as well. We all know this now, that does not have an Eat Local program. We do not have a Department of Tourism. We do not have any kind of Eat Local brand. So I'm from the great state of New Jersey. We have Jersey Fresh. You go to, there's Wisconsin, all kinds of states around the country have different programs. So this is really, this is very promising for us here. So, it's kind of popcorning from that. I think it's why this kind of, the brand is so important right now, because if you look at research from the University of Washington that Sarah Collier and folks did with WSU, was it with WSU and WSDA?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that, the COVID impacts on our food system have identified really serious market channel closures and shifts, and that, closure of direct marketing outlets, and, for consumers are looking, and particularly with the pandemic, really looking for ways to buy direct. That was, I think, one of the strongest shifts that we saw. So, the figures are a lot higher for shellfish growers, due to closures of restaurants and exports. But I think across the board in our food system in Washington State, we've seen significant impacts from COVID, which are really shaping consumer behavior. And not only about what they're buying, and how they're getting their information. So it sort of goes back to making the case for digital infrastructure. I might have gotten ahead of myself, so I think I'm gonna shift back to the Washington Food and Farm Finder.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking about this last night too, as I was thinking about our presentation, is we have changed the way that we access information. I mean, it's been a long time coming, but I am committed to local. I support all my local restaurants. I know all of my farmers in Northwest Washington, but when I'm in a place outside of that area and I don't know where to go eat, where do y'all go? Do you ever use Yelp? Ever? You want to admit it? I do. You need something that you can't find in a local store. Where do you go to the internet to find where you can get it? And so that is what we're talking about when we're talking about building digital capacity and helping to support the information finding. I'm sure some of you know this, but directories really drive search engine optimization too. So anytime you have a directory that is full of businesses, you might notice this with your local chamber of commerce. You do a search for a business, you might see that business come up first, but you might likely see the Chamber of Commerce's listing for that business come up first because of the search engine ranking and the value that that brings. So again, just another little tidbit about digital capacity. But so as we were talking about the market closures during COVID, again, that's why we came together, merged several different platforms, Pierce County Fresh, WSU's Farm Finder, the Farm Guide, the online Farm Guide, Sustainable Connections. We had the Food Atlas that we had launched 2 years previously, and also Island Grown in the San Juans and the Olympic Peninsula. So we merged that, and currently we have, 1,820 listings, of which 1,100 are farms in 37 counties across the state. And we know that this is just scratching the surface. There's a lot of outreach yet to be done, but I think after 1 year, it's a pretty good start. So, so grateful for all of you that are here today to learn and hopefully help us in continuing to bring on more farms and to maintain that information so that we can keep it fresh. Did you have a question? Oh,
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I saw that you guys do like sell shellfish and farms. Do you plan on adding ranchers to this, or
They're under farms.
they're under farms?
Right,
Okay.
so what you see, for example, so we have, there's farms, the categories are farms, seafood, markets and grocers, locally made, eat and drink, and local resources. So under each of those categories, it's a taxonomy. So under, for example, farms, you can search by meat, you can search by dairy, you can search by eggs, fruits and vegetables, things like that. And so just to point out that in addition to farms, ranches, farmers markets, which are kind of typical for a lot of the, directories and things like that, this eLocal, the Washington Food and Farm Finder, is a really rich database because it goes deep. So under, for example, markets and grocers, you'll see food hubs, you'll see farmers markets, you'll see food co-ops, you'll see like local delivery boxes, meal kits, and so it really gets more granular. And locally made are things that local makers do. Eat and drink are all your restaurants, catering, wineries, yeah, it's very important, especially during, in this possibly post-pandemic life. We have to have the wineries, distilleries, because they're all part of our local food ecosystem. So, that's part of the education process. And then, eat and drink also gets into food banks, community gardens, and then local resources will be things like regional agencies, local nonprofits. So our good friends from Business Impact Northwest have a listing. And so it is really this way of this whole ecosystem. What does it mean to eat local first, and then have broader understanding of food education and all the ways that we can connect with that. So, yeah. Great question, thank you.
And we want to talk a little bit about sustainability and diversity in our food system. One of the things that we are keenly aware of and why we started an Eat Local First brand in the first place is to help people with the value of supporting local align their purchasing with their values. And we know that that is driving the marketplace right now like it never has before. This has always been a core value for Sustainable Connections and for all of the organizations in the collaborative. So we had a lot of relationships and data already, but these are just a few of the sustainability and diversity indicators that folks can use to filter their search. So if they want to find certified organic, you can simply click that and populate a search and find organic farms in your region. That's the same for CSA as well. Folks can search based on demographics of producer. We've recently added a few new filters, one for Latinx producers, and we're about to add the filters for halal and kosher, because that's an emerging need that has been expressed from wholesale buyers. Our reach and engagement, Cheryl, do you wanna tackle that?
Yeah, I love this. I get to get all wonky with Google Analytics. So actually, since we launched last year, between our launch last year and this year, we've had close to 300,000 page views. One of the things I love learning about are, kind of who are those people that are looking at it. One of the things that's really interesting is that our first age demographic is 25 to 34, and then it goes 35 to 44, but actually a fairly high number is also 18 to 24. So it's some people might think, oh, 45, whatever it is. Though it's really across the board, it's kind of really engaged folks from across the age spectrum. And I think another thing that's really interesting about our reach and engagement is about 73% are coming from Washington State. Within that 73%, there's a fair amount that are coming from King County and Seattle, but if you look at the top 10, number 4 on that list for the last year has been Spokane. So it's, you know, it goes to Vancouver, Spokane, you know, we're over in the Olympic Peninsula, and we can directly trace those users from Spokane from the partnership work that we've been doing with our friends at Link Foods and other folks over in Spokane, and that happened starting last year with our holiday campaign. So that really speaks to reach and engagement in terms of not only what you're doing with the website, but what you're doing in terms of community and your partners. So that's really important. And then our holiday and CSA campaigns, we launched our first holiday campaign last year and our first CSA campaign this year. So they reached over 2 million people. So we had, we did paid media, we had a lot of earned media. So earned media is when you have a lot of media stories, and we've actually had a fair amount of media stories from around the state. We did some paid media. We're doing another holiday campaign that will launch in December. We'll be doing paid media in Spokane with Northwest Public Radio, so that'll take us around the state. Looking at some over in Port Townsend with The Leader, some in Seattle, so really trying to get the word out there. And the CSA campaign will happen in January through March of next year. Our social media platforms, we launched those as well this year, so we're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and they've reached well over 70,000 people, and we're going to be really pushing those out in the next month with the holiday campaign. And we have a quarterly consumer e-newsletter that launched in March of this year, and so that's going really well. So there's a lot that's happened in a very short amount of time, but building that kind of connectivity and that storytelling is really important. We also have a really robust blog section on the website. So as you can see, I really light up around reach and engagement because those of you who know me know how much I love doing outreach and I love connecting people and building community. And that is what Eat Local First is about. In addition to being a digital platform, it is about building community, it is about building connection, and it is also about building capacity for farmers, for businesses, and for consumers. So that is my happy little platform. And so looking to the future, I want Marissa to talk about our partnership with the WSDA Farm to School Food Assistance Program, because this is really exciting.
Yes, I am going to get to that, but I just wanted to mention after all of those things you rambled off, blogs, emails, social media, like whose organization has 2 full-time staff people to do that? None of ours, right? And that's the strength of a collaborative, is that we're all contributing content, we're all working together to push content out. And what's really cool is that we have, you know, Misha, who is also a farmer of Bright Eyed Acres in Ording, and has been running Pierce County Fresh, right, a hyper-local brand. And we often get asked, like, well, what about those hyper-local brands? Like, where do they fit? They do. They have a home with the Washington Food and Farm Finder, because we're not trying to take over and be the only brand for Washington. It's a place where we can point people to Pierce County Fresh. And we can also highlight stories from Pierce County. And so there's room for all of it. It's yes and, not, you know, one or the other. And so just wanted to mention that. But yes, let's talk about the future. So very exciting. In partnership with WSDA Farm to School and Food Assistance Programs, we've recently launched a beta wholesale product finder. If you have been in the WSDA session earlier today, or you've talked to Annette at the Farm to School table, this is work that's been going on for, gosh, Chris Iverly and regional markets have been doing Farm to School work for, I mean, over a decade. I don't know how long. But they have also been working on a database that they've been managing in, you know, Excel. You know, we've talked many times about how great it would be to be able to combine effort again and avoid duplication of effort. Instead of building a whole nother farm to school database, could we bring over that data and have that be the framework for a wholesale product finder? So that's what we did. We have a really beautiful wholesale product finder. We would love your feedback if you do visit the wholesale product finder, which we've got some flyers up here with the QR code to check it out. But when you go there for the first time, you'll get this pop-up. We are asking for stakeholder participants to help us evaluate this tool, because this, again, is the beta. There will be much more extensive development going into the future, and we really want to make sure that it's a tool that works for producers, for buyers, for all of our, especially food hubs. We want to make sure that they are at the table as we're discussing this and working in the future on that. So right now we are doing outreach to farms to get data populated, wholesale data, because we have a lot of direct-to-consumer data. We recently launched, as Cheryl mentioned, the CSA Finder this past March, which is a similar tool to help folks that are particularly looking to subscribe to a local farm and have more specific filters for a CSA. So we built this tool similarly to the CSA Finder, and we're right now working on outreach to get the data populated there. Coming in January, we'll begin a buyer outreach campaign to be introducing the wholesale product finder and having folks, particularly food service workers in school districts that are working with WSDA Farm to School, be able to originate their search and be able to locate farms. If you're aware, there's $5 million that's being put into local procurement for local school districts. There was an RFP that was put out just yesterday, and grants will begin to be awarded in January to school districts. So there is more money than ever being put into local procurement for our schools. And so this is one step in the right direction, but we have a long way to go. But we're really proud of it.
I had a question on that. When you say like you're trying to populate the product data, do you mean like actually listing products that are for sale?
I do.
So I would love to talk to you guys about like making these directories transactional to where it's not just like a static directory, because what I think you guys are doing is amazing work and it's super important, and I would love to see like that next step to be like, oh, here's a shop now button from this farm, and I'm gonna go right to their store, I'm gonna check out,
Yeah.
and there's a there's a sales, like, you know, so yeah, I would love to talk to you guys after
You
this.
and a lot of other people.
Yeah.
It is in high demand, and if you could imagine, and I'm not sure what you do, maybe you can imagine this, but tracking inventory for 1,800 listings is, I don't think it's what I want to do. So we are definitely open to a lot of possibilities and ways that this can be used. At this point, for farms that don't even have a Facebook page, this is a good starting point.
And I just might mention that one of the things that we do have on the website that's a nice feature, and you know, it's not up right, I mean, it's on the website, but when you go to the homepage of Eat Local First, or take this off, you can see right on the homepage when you scroll down, there are 6 tiles, right? In one view, like farm stands, eat and drink. There's a tile that says order online. You click on that, brings up all the farms and the businesses that have self-selected, because that's the thing about Eat Local First. It's user-generated, user content that have self-selected ordering online, and that when that button comes up, you look at their profile, that will take you right to their website. So we're not specifically at this point set up to be doing e-commerce, but we do have a way to very specifically drive people back to that farm's or that business's website. And so it's there's a couple different ways that you can get to that.
Great.
So, but great question though.
Yeah.
So
Another question here too.
yeah.
I was curious, for the wholesale platform, is this more so targeted toward farm producers who have like raw agriculture goods such as like apples, tomatoes, let's say, or is this also available for value-added producers who are making maybe jams, jellies, meat products?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Any food producer. It's seafood, it's vegetables, it's processed, it's raw. It's a very extensive list of filters. And having said that, we are available to provide technical assistance to farms and producers as they're filling out their listing, to help them walk through, and in some cases even do it for them. So we are available to do that.
Sometimes, you know, what I find too is that when I'm working with different folks around the state, they might get together like a group of folks and say, let's do a Zoom session together. So however that works, that is an option, you know, when people have questions about how to fill it out or they need some additional assistance.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of us coming together as a collaborative as well is we really wanted to try and alleviate the burden on farms to have to be doing this on 6 different websites. If you're a producer who's selling to markets across the state and you have to go and update 6 platforms, it's not going to be good data, and it's a lot of extra labor that's not necessary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we? So, and maybe just, yeah, 1 second. So what else are we looking to? We are hoping to raise awareness of the Eat Local First brand. As Cheryl mentioned, we've had some successful campaigns, and we will be continuing to run campaigns. And then, again, we want to increase engagement, listings, and representation of diverse food businesses, and that's diverse across the state, regionally. Especially, we would like to reach out more to Eastern Washington, Central Washington, and we are going to be working with new partners in those regions as well, bringing new people into the collaborative so that we're not just mostly concentrated in Western Washington. I just said those things. I put it down.
I wanted to just share one thing as I've been working on the holiday campaign, and then we're going to open it up to questions. And it goes back to the power of storytelling. So, you know, I'm working a lot in the listings right now. We're going to do another holiday food and farm finder, and there'll be links to, you know, all different kinds of farms and different kinds of businesses around the state for like, here are ways that you can have local food, local products on the table or as gift giving, make them part. What our tagline is: spend the holidays with a farmer, eat local first. So all the ways that you can do that. And so, you know, I spend a lot of time, and I love doing this, and I've done it for many years with the Farm Guide, reading what people write, what farmers write, businesses write, local businesses, small businesses write about themselves, and the passion of their stories, and it moves you. I mean, it's very powerful. And so when you read that, and then, you know, this is the opportunity that all of you have to be able to tell your story, or if you have a local business that is part of your life that is sourcing from a local farm, this is for them to be able to. So for all of us, we are building a strong circular economy together. We are building regional economies. So, Laura, do you have anything to add before we open it up to questions?
No, but I can just, I'll share a little personal story. So I've obviously been involved in this as someone who's associated with, you know, WSU and as a resource provider, but my brother's a commercial fisherman down in Ilwaco, and he fishes albacore tuna, and his tuna is restaurant sashimi grade tuna. He's a blast freezer, and so the bottom completely fell out of his market last year, and he had decided to can like 4,000 or 5,000 pounds of his tuna, and you know, he was selling it on the market at blast freezer prices. So he had dropped his price and was trying to get rid of product any way that he could. And he got on Eat Local first, and so he decided, you know, when it came out, he signed up. He had all this canned tuna, Pacific Tuna Products. He was able to move a ton of product. And now he's in the Astoria Food Hub, and they also were able to search and look for the farms and places that were around, and you know he's gotten his product into local CSAs now where they want to have some protein. And so it's just been like beautiful for me to, you know, to like, it wasn't even something that I was thinking about, you know, we were so focused on really farmers, and I knew what was happening in the seafood industry because of my personal relationship with him and knowing anecdotally what was happening. It's not my area of expertise, but it's just been a beautiful story for me to be able to see, you know, just even someone in my own personal bubble really benefit from the platform. So
Yeah, I love that story. All right, who's got questions?
So as a farmer, how is information being populated?
Just gonna ask that.
Yeah, so this is I'm just gonna navigate around so I don't know if you can see my little pointer, but a farm that isn't currently listed, a farm that isn't currently listed can go and just sign themselves up. So you would go create an account. All you need is name, email address, phone number to create an account, and from there you'll be prompted to create a listing. Now you can fill in as little or as much information as you want to. To have a really optimized profile, it's best to fill out everything you possibly can. You'll notice there's different questions that are dependent. So if I select that I'm a farm, I'm going to be presented with questions that ask me if I want to, if I run a CSA program. And so filling all of that out really completely is going to help your farm or your listing show up in every search. So if somebody is searching for a farm that offers U-Pick, you know, you want to make sure you have that box checked so that you show up. But it's very simple. It really probably takes less than 5 minutes to just get set up initially, maybe a good 30 minutes if you need some time to work out your business description and story and all of that. But Cheryl is the amazing outreach contact behind our info@elocalfirst.org website, our email address, and we are constantly in communication and checking in and answering questions. I also discovered this really cool tool this past year. It's called Loom. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but it's basically like a screen sharing site. So sometimes people have questions and I can pop on Loom and just like record how to do it in a little video and send it, and it's like worth an hour of trying to write it into an email. So yeah, lots of support on this end. But does that answer the question?
Yes. Can I follow it?
Sure.
So you're talking about how there's space for all these different websites. Is all this information lives with eLocal First? Is that being populated anywhere else? Or are individuals still populating multiple websites?
So all of the directories that are, all of the organizations that are part of the eLocal First Collaborative have merged their data. They are not maintaining separate data anymore.
I'm a Thurston County.
Yeah,
So,
right, so you have the food finder.
Yes.
So, and with Southwest Sound. And that's a great one, and we've had conversations with Patrick, who's the ED, and so actually he was one of our supporters for when we launched Eat Local First, and so I think that one of the things that we haven't touched on is the ongoing conversations we've been having with some folks in different parts of the state around their different food and farm finders. We actually have a lot of folks from Thurston County that are currently on Eat Local First. So I think that probably that one is probably one of the few remaining farm guides that is left, because there isn't really anything.
Gorge Grown.
Gorge Grown, right, and Gorge Grown was also an early supporter, and we're still in conversation with them about partnership. And so it's a process right now of, I think, launching this part of the ship, and then how we sort of bring other people into the conversation. So I don't think there's anything over in eastern Washington either that already.
I think there may be something in Walla Walla.
Yeah,
I think
there's
we had talked about that, the Blue Mountain something.
But like right now, I'm starting to be in a conversation with the Green Bluff growers over in Spokane. So You know, it's just, I think part of that, particularly with South of the Sound Trust, there's a very strong sense of regional identity, and what we want folks to know is that this is not about absconding with anybody's regional identity, because that's a really important part of, and Patricia, you can speak to this, right? About, you know, and how we've been able to build those conversations and that trust with folks on the Olympic Peninsula, because that was an initial concern of, well, we don't want to lose our identity, but over time we were able to have a lot of conversations, and we were able to start getting media and just really start doing work in community, and that's really changed. Yeah.
If I could just comment on that. So I live in Bremerton, but I work with a lot of folks out in Jefferson and Collin County, and we have the Eat Local First Olympic Peninsula branch of Eat Local First, and I think we started our conversations with Sustainable Connections back in 2016, and it was a group of folks in Jefferson, primarily Jefferson County, that really wanted to, you know, do what Sustainable Connections had been doing up in Whatcom and Skagit County. And we went so far as we actually have an MOU with Sustainable Connections where we took the Eat Local First brand, because the branding, the graphics and all the infographics that go with it are so beautifully designed, and that just really we thought, you know, why not do that? They've got a framework set up, but that also kind of creates some consistency with consumers as well, because, you know, we have this whole find the fork thing. So, but at the same time, and we have a lot of conversations in our neck of the woods of what is local, what is our identity, what is special about the Olympic Peninsula. And there's a lot of things that are very special about Olympic Peninsula, just as there are with like Whatcom and Skagit County. So we try to embrace those and celebrate those, not just kind of make it all about Washington.
Mary?
First of all, I'm really excited to help promote this. It's just a wonderful effort. And I'm curious, how is it being verified that the organizations who are listed on there are doing what they say they're doing? That they really are sourcing locally, that they are farming organically, or whatever the case may be?
So we are not policing any of the information. We do, for the third-party certifications, we do have a process set up to check in with the lists from our regional partners about making sure that those are jiving. When it comes to restaurants, this is something that Sustainable Connections has a good reputation for in Whatcom and Skagit County. Because we have a relationship with our restaurants, I think at this point, not many of them would dare put themselves on the map with Eat Local First, because they know we have their number. They know if they're sourcing locally or not. And you know, in full transparency, because the Food Atlas was our initial map and tool for Northwest Washington, there is a concentration of restaurant listings up in that region. We have not had the bandwidth yet to begin outreach into the Seattle area and beyond, but I'm excited about some projects that we have coming up, even in the first quarter of next year, where we will be partnering with Seattle Good Business Network, Business Impact Northwest, and we will be doing more outreach to value-added product producers and restaurants. And those partners, again, because they have the relationships, they go to the restaurants, they eat there, they know their farmers, there's accountability that's woven into the collaborative in that way. That being said, it is not perfect. There very well may be people that say that they're sourcing locally. I can guarantee you that if someone, one of our farmers gets put on somebody's website and they'll let us know, hey, so-and-so said they're sourcing locally, but they haven't bought a turkey from me, for over a year. And so, we might reach out to that person. And we have had some of those conversations, Cheryl and I, people that have wanted to list on the site. And, there's this clause, this statement of, we source locally whenever possible. That's not good enough for us.
Yeah, and Mary, to your point, to your question, we do have so in other words, when someone signs up for a listing on the site, that listing does not get published immediately, because what happens, it goes to Marissa, who does the verification. So we're checking their social media, we're taking a look at their website before they get published. we're looking at them, and then there's, there'll often be, sometimes there's back and forth between myself and Marissa, or, sometimes they sit in the pending, a little bit of the purgatory section at the back end of the website for a while, until we can really kind of just verify and we can ensure that. And then, we are also in regular communication with all of our folks that do listings. We have, so we're MailChimp set up, and we're, and so I think, again, kind of going back to what Sustainable Connections built initially with Eat Local First and the Food Atlas. They built in Skagit and Blatka and the San Juan Islands over the last 4 years. They built this platform where all those folks understand, what is this and how do I use it and how am I getting the most out of it? And so now what we're doing is we're taking this collective, collaborative effort, which is not ultimately just going to be limited to these 6 organizations. We are harnessing the power of the group. How do you start building that in different communities? But so again, going back to verification, there will be, as we, we're just going into our 2nd year. So that next piece of that puzzle will be, okay, it's time for you to renew your listing. So it used to be renew your listing, you're going to get in this print guide. So it's renew your listing, and we want to make sure that these boxes check off. And so it's just going to be a bit of a process. But there is, not everybody gets through the gate. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I would say that we were probably the most, the WSU database was the most riddled with problems because people had put in multiple listings over the years because they had forgotten maybe they had one, or so we had duplicate listings. We had, so there was a big process of verification of those, and a lot of them were no longer in business, so that the process of getting it set up was pretty, what's there is pretty clean. It's I think the rhythmic updating and making sure, yeah.
So we are at 2:55. Any last questions?
I think we got, was it 3:15 or 3:05?
Wait, 3:15. Wait, what time do we end?
I think it's 3:10.
3:10.
3:10.
There we go.
Bring on the question.
There you go.
All right, right there.
I asked this question as somebody who will be filling out the grant, the USDA grant, WSDA for the farm to school program. And know some of my local farms up to the concrete school district of Skagit. But I worry, just also having worked on farms, that it will be hard, that will be a great tool to utilize to find farms beyond what I know. I worry that it will be hard to communicate with them, and I wonder if you guys provide any assistance in just a communications realm, or maybe farmers who are stretched too thin, they get on the platform and then they are not on the platform anymore, and maybe somebody's trying to get in contact about a wholesale account, and there's maybe this is too negative of a perspective on it, but
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So basically you're asking, is there additional capacity to assist in the connection between buyer and producer? And I would say probably it depends based on region. So in my neck of the woods, for sure, that's part of my regular job that I do at Sustainable Connections. In other areas where maybe there aren't those relationships and that capacity, that's really where WSDA Farm to School comes in, because that's
their job.
That's their job.
Yeah.
And they're doing the outreach. So.
And even if it's not a school, even if it's a wholesaler, or and you need some help with that relationship, regional markets would be the place to go.
Yeah, and we are in constant communication with them as well, and constantly sharing information and passing people back and forth in terms of who needs help with what. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question? So how many of you in here have a listing on Eat Local First? Okay, so all of you have listings. How many of you that don't have a listing are interested in doing one? Okay, right there. Okay. And those of you that might have a farm or a business that you don't have a listing, is there something that you're thinking as to maybe why, or a question that you might have around that, or not?
I didn't know it existed.
Okay.
So, that's
Great.
Some of the local farm aggregators, there is a cost involved. Is that true of Eagle First?
Our
I'm
listings.
sorry, didn't mean to laugh, cause it's been there, yeah, our challenge all along.
Listings have been provided free to, since the launch of the collaborative, all listings have been free to all listers. We may need to charge a nominal fee in the future, we're not sure yet. We would love to be able to provide free listings to farmers, and we are looking for funders who want to do that, right? It's really compelling to be able to provide that and alleviate that barrier for producers. So that's something we're really committed to trying to make happen. But as of right now, it's free, yes.
And that was such a complicated part of all of us coming together because WSU had this kind of horrific database, but it was free. You know, and then TILP had the farm guide and Sustainable Connections had the food, so we all had these like very different platforms and ways that we were charging for them and help, or not charging for them. So I think that's been such a beautiful part of this collaborative is that the flexibility is as we get started and working together, as a public institution, we really wanted to keep this as free or as low cost as possible and for our partners to be like, yeah, let's try to figure this out. It's been great.
Mary, I see another question.
Yeah, so you mentioned an age demographic,
Mhm.
and I'm curious, who is your target audience right now, and who are you not reaching, and why do you think you're not reaching them, and how can we help you reach them?
Oh, that's great, I love it. So I think
Can
that.
you repeat the question? Oh, just so
Oh.
they can,
Okay, so what Mary asked is, I talked about the age demographic, and you tell me if I get this wrong. So it's kind of who are we reaching, like who's our audience with this? And then who are we not reaching right now? And why do we think that's happening? So I think the folks that we are reaching are people that have, when you look on something like Google Analytics, it will tell you something people that have what's called affinity interests, right? And so, because that's what Google does. And so people that we know that are looking at our website have an interest in food, they have an interest in dining, they have an interest in value shopping, recipes, books, so that could be like cookbooks. So we know, and also another one is, they're into sustainability, green living. So there's like affinity interests. And so who we're not reaching though, and so we're kind of looking at, when I think about who we're not reaching, I tend to think about the geo. So in other words, the geographic reach. So in other words, when you look at the website, when it launched, you'll see that, most listings are in Northwest Washington. That is because, it started 4 years ago. So they have been doing this amazing work. You see a lot of restaurants and just a really big array of businesses that are out there. But then when we aggregated all the information together, so when we included the farm guide, we only had farms and farmers markets. The Bureau had farms, so no farmers markets. Pierce County Fresh had farms and farmers markets, but no businesses. So right now, for example, even though we have a lot of core users in Seattle, King County, Vancouver, Olympic Peninsula, there's a big gap in Central Washington, right? And so there's like a gap up in Walla Walla and the Tri-Cities and Yakima and, so pretty much got Western Washington, feeling pretty good about Western Washington, and actually Olympia comes up a lot in the top 10 search. So that's good. And so I think that's also will show like where media has been driving those numbers when we've done paid and earned media. So that's why, for example, for the holiday campaign, the paid media is going to be going into, we're going to do a chunk in Central Washington. So that you can really start getting that message out to bring people in. And another thing that we're going to be doing, we always do an enter to win. We love enter to wins. So we're going to be buying from different farmers around the state some like $50 gift certificates So it's like enter to win and get this from this farmer and this farmer here. And so you start to build that. So I think geographically, and then I think also in terms of diversity. So we're looking at how are we bringing in more listings that are veterans, LGBTQ+, BIPOC, Latino, Latinx. So really increasing that, and that will just all take time because there's two things, right? You meet people where they are, not where you want them to be, and that trust, progress moves at the speed of trust. So part of it is just today. This is like the first time we've been able to present about Eat Local First in front of a real live audience. You are our beautiful guinea pigs. Thank you so much. But this is what it means to be in community and to start talking about this and how you populate this. So that we're like, well, how do we all build this? This is our statewide, this is us. We want to eat local first. We want to promote this.
This was the first time we saw some of each other ever.
Oh, ever.
First time ever better.
In person. Like we've been
cried.
meeting the number of hours in the last almost 2 years.
Well, nice job.
Thank you. But it was just like tackling each other when we got here. It was like, oh my gosh, you're real. Escape Zoom.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Are we good? Please come up, get business cards, get collateral, come ask questions, but can we have a round of applause for all of you?
Yeah. Hear from the folks that are using it, like if they've seen any changes or increase in business, or they feel like things are getting driven their way more.
I haven't experienced that yet.
Not yet.
It'll happen though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come talk to me.
Okay.
I want to hear your question. I just want to mention too, we do have a video tutorial that shows you how to fill out the listing completely. So we have a YouTube channel, there's tutorials on there so you can walk through and like see in real life like how to fill it out. So yeah.
Yeah, everybody please come up afterwards, get my business card, feel free to come up and ask more questions. Love to be able to help you all out.
You were saying that you were gonna try to dive deeper into Central Washington.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about that? Do you reach out to farmers or do you go to the farmers
So
markets?
that's a great question. So for the holiday campaign, so what that means is that really going after, because we're trying to promote, Eat Local for the holidays. Here's the holiday food and farm finder, and we want them on the website. So we're going to do. I'm working on a media buy with Northwest Public Radio, which is a terrific reach throughout Central Washington and goes into Northwest Washington as well. And actually, I'm doing a media buy with the Inlander in Spokane, which actually their reach now is out of Spokane and goes into Pullman, Kansas Lake. It's really interesting, how people find that. And then, so part of it is, having to, spend a little money to kind of try to, we can't on our own stand up on our own soapbox and go, hey, Eat Local First over here to all the residents of Central Washington. But what starts to happen is people start to hear Eat Local First, Eat Local First. And it's like outreach, we talk about marketing and outreach and branding and all of that. It really is about how do you start to make something sticky. And over time, it gets into people's consciousness and they start to hear it, they start to experience, how did you find that? Oh, have you heard about Eat Local First? Word of mouth is a very powerful tool. And when we find something that helps us, right? You find a good review on Yelp, or you find a great farmer or a local restaurant or something on Eat Local First that made a difference in your life. You made a connection with a farmer that changed your life. You're gonna remember that.
And I wanted to just also add, I think too, the nature of the work that we do, especially with a lot of local producers, has been historically concentrated on the west side of the state. From a WSU perspective, WSU is in every county, but often in the counties where we have big ag, we don't spend a lot of our time supporting small and mid-sized farms and food businesses. So like the Olympic Peninsula was so far ahead because they had already had a listserv of all of, with hundreds of farmers you know, they were already doing a print directory and those kinds of things through WSU. And Spokane is the same way. They have a really good, Pat Muntz is awesome. She's been there forever. She's gonna be retiring soon, but she knows like every farmer in Spokane. She's very well connected with Link. And so building those relationships still, you know, in Yakima, we haven't had a consistent presence through WSU as a director or doing small farms work for probably a decade. You know, so building those relationships again, not just from WSU, but all the partner organizations that are working together. So, and there are organizations there already doing that work. And I think that's part of what we're still, as the development of this tool, it's not just bringing people in who already have databases, but working with other organizations that support food and farm businesses in Eastern and Central Washington. So we know they're out there. We know that there's programs that are supporting them. They're just not necessarily linked right now with our organizations.
I think one of the other things that's happening too is that you're seeing more businesses that are developing online stores and e-commerce. And so in the first 3 months of the pandemic, this is a stat that came out in September of 2020, it was from McKinstry, that e-commerce reached the levels that had been predicted for decades worth of growth. So it's really interesting to kind of see that growth of online opportunities and the businesses that are taking advantage of that. So even if you are in Spokane or Central Washington, and you're like Okanagan Highlands Lavender, which is a really cool farm, they have a fantastic store that they sell products. They also do a lot of really cool things at the farm. But last year we did, through the holiday campaign, we had a whole, we had the KCPQ TV in Seattle came and did a segment on the holiday campaign. We had all this product from local farms. I had gorgeous swag and lavender. I set up like a little farm store at my house in the backyard for a 6:30 in the morning shoot, and I showed all this stuff from their farm. She said their website went down. They had so much traffic. But the thing is that they're able to ship. So what we're seeing more and more as the sort of next generation of farms comes online, literally, that those divisions or those lines between East and West are starting to, you know, they're getting a little softer. Yeah.
I think we're at time, but
Yeah.
what else is a powerful tool is stickers. So
Yeah.
stickers on
There you go.
your-
Put them on your water
Oh,
bottle.
yeah, I want one
anywhere,
right now. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yes, I know. Yes, we did. Yeah.
Oh, no, is this yours?
Oh, yeah. Saw it kind of hit the
Yeah.
floor. I didn't know if you or her.
Kind of similar.
Yeah, so, you know,
You're down in third floor.
I would love to have one. I mean, I would never
And I know they said we are,
Oh, we did different times. Yeah, that's possible. That is possible. We don't have.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have